Baldr, god of light and purity in Norse mythology. Today, we'll explore the story of Baldr, the Norse god of light, purity, and peace. His story is not only a tale of virtue, but also a deeply tragic myth about the eternal struggle between light and darkness, peace and conflict. Despite the sorrowful outcome, it carries a glimmer of hope for renewal. Baldr is one of the most positive figures in the Norse pantheon. Ancient Norse texts describe him as the embodiment of beauty, wisdom, and purity, surrounded by an aura of light. Unlike many gods whose personalities are complex, Baldr's image is consistently associated with goodness. He symbolizes peace and tranquility and is known as the god of love, beauty, and light, making him beloved by both gods and people. Baldr's origins and family. Baldr is the son of the chief god, Odin, and his wife, Frigg, the rulers of Asgard. Like all of Odin's children, Baldr's fate was closely linked to the fate of the world. Baldr has a brother, Hodr, the blind god, as well as Thor, the god of thunder. These contrasting traits, Baldr's light and Hodr's darkness, represent the eternal opposition of light and darkness. As his parents, Odin and Frigg, symbolized wisdom and maternal protection, they were particularly protective of Baldr, sensing the sorrow his death would bring. According to the myths, Baldr was deeply loved by his parents, friends, and all of Asgard, which makes his death all the more tragic. Baldr's traits and symbols. In Norse mythology, Baldr's appearance and character emphasize his role as an embodiment of light and goodness. He is depicted as a youthful god with handsome features radiating light. He is said to be the kindest, fairest, and wisest among the gods, and is known to avoid conflict, always striving for peace and understanding. Symbols associated with Baldr include white and sunlight, symbolizing his purity and divine nature. People looked up to him as an ideal of goodness. His association with white and light underscores his connection to purity and truth, while his peaceful nature reflects a desire for harmony. Dreams and prophecies of Baldr's death. Like many mythological stories, Baldr's fate was foretold. His mother, the goddess Frigg, had a prophetic dream that her son would die. This dark prophecy worried the gods greatly, and Frigg took every measure possible to protect him. She secured promises from all things in the universe not to harm Baldr. However, she overlooked the mistletoe, a small, seemingly harmless plant which would later play a tragic role. Dreams in Norse mythology often have significant meanings, foreshadowing important events, which underscores their mystical importance in myths. The story of Baldr's death. Baldr's death marks a profound tragedy brought on by deceit. It began with the gods' games in which they would throw various objects at Baldr, knowing he was unharmed by any of them. However, Loki, the god of mischief, could not stand the peacefulness surrounding Baldr. Learning about the mistletoe, Loki crafted an arrow from it and tricked Baldr's blind brother Hodr into shooting it. Without knowing, Hodr threw the arrow, which fatally wounded Baldr. This shocking event devastated the gods, as the most beloved and radiant among them had perished. The grief of the gods and Hermodr's journey. Baldr's death brought immense grief to all the gods. Frigg and Odin, in particular, were heartbroken. Frigg, unable to accept her son's death, pleaded for someone to travel to Hel, the realm of the dead, and negotiate for Baldr's return. Hermodr, Baldr's brother, undertook this mission. Hermodr reached Hel and conveyed the god's request to the goddess of the underworld. She agreed to release Baldr on the condition that every living thing wept for him. Nearly all beings, even inanimate objects, mourned Baldr. However, a giantess named Tuk, often believed to be Loki in disguise, refused to shed a tear, and thus Baldr remained in the realm of the dead, the symbolic meaning of Baldr's death. In Norse mythology, Baldr's death is seen as a harbinger of Ragnarok, the end of the world. As the embodiment of light, beauty, and peace, Baldr's death symbolized the beginning of a descent into chaos, marking the approach of dark times. This myth represents the transition from light to darkness and from order to chaos, aligning with the Norse belief in the cyclical nature of existence. Yet, even after Ragnarok, a prophecy foretells that Baldr will return to a renewed world, bringing light and harmony once more. In this way, Baldr's story not only signifies a lost world, but also the promise of its rebirth. Baldr's cult and worship. While there is limited archaeological evidence of Baldr's worship, myths suggest he was significant to Norse society. Baldr symbolized purity and peace, and it is likely that festivals and rituals were held in his honor. His worship may have been linked to natural cycles, marking the transition of seasons and the struggle between light and dark. The myths also indicate a belief in an afterlife where the souls of the dead would find peace. In ancient texts, Baldr's image is referenced with reverence, reflecting his importance in the spiritual culture of the Norse. Conclusion: Baldr's story is a narrative of light overshadowed by darkness, of beauty and purity that, despite every attempt to protect them, ultimately perish, foreshadowing catastrophe. But his myth also conveys the idea of cycles, that after destruction and darkness, there is always hope for light and harmony. Baldr represents an ideal that both gods and humans aspire to, embodying supreme beauty and a tragic fate. Even today, Baldr's story inspires us to think about the eternal struggle between light and darkness and the possibility of new beginnings. His tale lives on, preserving the power of ancient myths and illuminating the enduring values of light, purity, and peace.